pleasure to be here, and it's a great chance to be able to present research which is very much in progress. So let me start from here. Which is very much in progress, as you will see. So the question here is, it's one of the biggest questions we ask ourselves in business schools, and it's how management style affects firm performance. And you get a lot of anecdotal evidence, this manager did this, and that the firm did that. And this is especially important for CEOs. They're the ones at the top of the organization. You get a lot of anecdotes, you get some evidence, but there's very limited direct evidence on this relation. So we're trying to get some data on this, and the idea is simply that management style, the way you run your company, should be reflected in the way you allocate your time to different constituencies, different tasks. So think about someone who allocates a lot of time to customers versus someone who allocates a lot of time to finance or production. So it's very different, and if you get information about that, you could tell a lot about their management style, and then you could link it to the firm performance. So the idea is simply to get as much data as possible about how CEOs spend a random week in their work schedule. And of course, this is pretty hard because you cannot ask them directly. You cannot ask them directly because they're very busy, and because they would probably answer, the reply that they would give you is what they want, is how they would like to spend their time rather than how they actually spend their time. So the way we go is we ask them for their authorization, and then if they say yes, we work with their PAs in order to get information of their agendas. I'll tell you more about the protocol later on, but the idea is that really a CEO cannot work without a PA, and the PA knows very well the CEO schedule. This is a long-term project, and we have already completed a couple of phases. This phase here is particularly interesting for you because it was run at Harvard Business School, and it was run with students, and so these were people who are already CEOs before going to HBS, and we follow them for a week. What I would like to talk to you about today is something that for which we just got data, so it's very preliminary, and I think this is the right forum to share this type of things. And then we plan for more surveys. So this is about this data comes from India. We managed to follow 364 CEOs of top Indian companies. These are Indian listed manufacturing firms. We focus on manufacturing because we think it's a more homogeneous set of issues that they face. They cover various states. This is the state where Bombay is, Maharashtra, and this is where the one with more companies. I won't get too much into the details of that, but we had a bunch of analysts working for us, and once we get CEO authorization, they work with a PA every day, and they record all activities over 15 minutes, and they call the PA twice a day to try, and every time we try to get to the same source of information twice in order to verify that it works. So this is what it looks like. We ask for a list of activities that the CEO does during the day, and for each activity we ask for a lot of details. In particular, we ask whether the type, is it a meeting? We ask whether it was planned or it just happened. We ask where it took place. We ask, the most important thing is we ask who participated in it. We don't ask for the names of the people, but we ask for their function. They can be insiders. They could work, for instance, they could be finance, marketing, production, or they could be outsiders, clients, suppliers, banks, investors, so on and so forth. So that gives us a pretty good picture of what they do. So let me try just to give you a sense of where we are now with the analysis. We're in the middle of it, so I'll tell you what we've done so far. So these are the averages. These are the averages of the information that we get. The hours reported are about 46 hours a week. Remember, this is just the work schedule. Of course, there's much more that they do outside. There's an interesting distinction, and we will come back to that later, between time that was planned and time that was unplanned. Some of it is face interaction. These are all hours, so 26 hours a week is face interactions. This is the main activity of a CEO. There are some meetings, there's some working alone, and there's some travel. What's interesting in all this is not so much the averages as much as the variability. So there is a huge variability in all these dimensions, in how many hours they work, in whether they devote more time to meetings or other activities. These are just distributions of CEOs. I just want to give you a sense that there is a lot of variability here in whether they devote more time to the various functions, finance, sales, and production, and how much time they plan. So some people basically plan everything, and some people plan very little. What do we do with that? So we have a lot of variability here. We have a lot of variability on various dimensions. What kind of technique are we going to use? What we're interested in is their style. Can we qualify style, and can we qualify it in an agnostic way without putting our priors on what style could be? And so what we do is we use a clustering procedure. We use a clustering procedure which basically says, suppose that I think that there are really two prototype CEOs out there, and everybody else is kind of belongs to one of those two types. Let's let the statistical procedure tell us what these two stereotypical types look like, and let's put all the dimension of style that we have, and what we get is these two styles. And I think this starts to be interesting because it gives you a sense of on which dimensions you have more variability and how they co-vary together. So there's this, let's be agnostic and call it style 1 and style 2. Style 1 is characterized by more planning. They plan 72% of their time as opposed to 64% of their time. They spend more time at the firm rather than outside the firm. They spend more time in meetings. They spend more time with insiders rather than with outsiders. They spend more time with production. And they spend more time on larger meetings rather than bilateral interaction. So there's a style 1 is a more organized style, is a more structured kind of management. Style 2 is a more of a casual style of management, perhaps more responsive to what happens in the firm rather than rather than trying to drive the organization. And that's interesting, but the key question, so we want to think about firm performance. And so the key question is whether these two styles are related to firm performance. And here is a big, what we find a big surprise is that if you put the productivity of the firms managed by CEOs of type 1 as opposed to CEOs of type 2, you see a huge productivity difference. Now, I don't know why I use logarithm, but basically this means it's about a 45% difference. This is productivity here is measured as sales per employee. If you measure it as return on capital invested or other standard measures, you get similar results. So it seems to be, this is just a correlation, right? We don't know about causality, but it tells us that there is something that connects management style with performance. Can we do something more? So in particular, you could tell two stories at this point. You could tell that some CEOs face different conditions, and these conditions call for a different management style. These are firms that have a bad performance, and you have to manage in a certain way. Or you could think that causality goes from management style to performance. So let's try to understand a little bit. We do various things. So first of all, we find that external constraints don't seem to play a role. So there are no differences across industries, no difference by various Indian states have very different level of developments, and this does not seem to be very explanatory. There's one exception. The presence of infrastructure in the state has some explanatory effect. What seems to be a strong explanatory variable is the type of firm, is governance. So style 1, the structure style, is chosen by large firm, by multinational firms, and instead style 2 is characteristic of family-owned firms. So again, you can ask yourself, why are certain firms different from others? Why are family firms different? And you can have two stories. You can tell, again, a story that this is an optimal response to environment, or you could tell a story that family firms somehow they're not doing everything they could. One way to do this, so we have this test, and one way what we do at this point as economists is we try to look for a natural experiment. We try to look for some trick that clearly is outside the control of the CEO and outside the control of the firm and could tell us this. And the tricks we could come up with are two tricks. One is the monsoon. So when we we carried out our survey in monsoon season, and so some days you have extreme rain, and some days you don't. And then cricket matches. If anyone here is a cricket fan, you know how important that can be. And by the way, when we mean extreme rain, we mean really extreme rain. This is New York last week was bad, but this can be much worse. So what do we get here? We get that these events, so what do these events do? They make it costlier for the CEO to go to work, right? It's raining a lot. You'd rather stay home. You'd rather not travel to the plant, so on and so forth. The cricket match, you'd rather not go to work. And so let's see if there's a differential effect. And what we find is that there is a key difference, and family CEOs respond much more to this event. So that seems to indicate that there is a governance issue. Governance seems to be an important variable here. Very interestingly, the family effect disappears if the companies are multinational. So the market pressure can probably undo this. So this is where we are at this point. I think this type of time use analysis can tell you something about management style. And it's strongly related to performance differences. So it could tell you something about management style affects performance. What we find so far is the governance seems to be the key question. We were kind of surprised. We thought that other environmental conditions, especially the state development, was an important one, but we didn't find that. The next step is more data. So we plan to run surveys like this on many other countries and get more data and more comparable information. Finally, let me conclude with one thought. Could this be a useful tool? So this is useful for us researchers. Could it be a useful tool for CEOs and for MBA students? And I think there's a good chance here. Our pilot experiment at HBS was very well received, and some CEOs who've seen this, they've got excited and they've got data about themselves. So perhaps having a way for them to compare themselves to other people could be helpful. Thank you.